Welcome to the Liquid Soapbox Podcast. This is a show where we talk about topics that we're passionate about, giving us an opportunity to get up on our soapbox with the help of a little bit of liquid fuel. Hey everybody, welcome to the Liquid Soapbox Podcast. My name is Dominic Battistella. I'm your host. I'm here with my co-host Clint Webb.
Yo.
And we've got Andre Cameron, who is on the mixing board. And we got a pretty exciting show coming up because we've got Skaz Digga in the studio, and he's going to be talking to us about hip-hop culture, the Durham hip-hop scene, and where hip-hop has come from and where it's going to go in the future. But for right now, we're going to start talking a little bit about the concept of this show, because I don't know if we've really ever addressed it, but the concept of the show, Liquid Soapbox, goes like this. We drink a little bit, and we talk a little bit, and then we drink a little bit more, and then by the end of this hour, we might break out in a song, or we might get up on our soapbox and do a little bit of a rant, and that's what I'm hoping for. So...
Well, with discussions about hip-hop.
Oh, yeah.
It might come to that.
Look, I know I can get on a soapbox about almost anything, but I think today we're going to get up on the soapbox about where the industry is, maybe.
Need that.
Yeah, exactly.
Stuff.
So, Skaz, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what made you decide, I need to be a producer, I need to be a DJ? How did that happen for you?
Okay. Kind of deep story a little bit. I was intrigued by music in general since a youth. My parents, I had music heavily in my household. My father actually played instruments. He played about 5 instruments.
Oh, nice. What did he play?
He played woodwinds. He played clarinet, flute,
Okay.
sax, and he played
Love
some keys.
the sax.
Yeah.
And I forget, it's a couple other ones, but yeah.
Pretty much all the single reed instruments.
Yeah, he was a good woodwind cat. And then my mother, she sang, not professionally, but just she had a good range. She sang pretty good.
Now, I know a lot of people that grow up in musical families. They grow up in musical families because the family is involved in with the church.
Yeah, that's what it was.
With music. Yeah, it was a similar story to you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Within the church, definitely. I did church choirs and choruses and things of that nature, following my mom's footsteps.
Okay.
And then my father actually introduced me to a keyboard, and then I just learned how to play certain single things by ear, just hearing like little jingles or things, and I learned how to play those. But really, I was good at reading music when I was a kid, but I wasn't that serious about it.
Okay.
At that point. Because growing up, I wanted to be an architect, actually. You know what I'm saying? So I was into art and drafting and stuff to that.
Okay. And there's obviously a difference coming up in a household where you've got vocals, you've got your father playing instruments. How do you take a step? Because I don't imagine that, like it is now, you can go to almost any music store and purchase a cheap set of turntables. That wasn't just available back then.
Not at all.
So how do you take a step into that? Where does that come from?
With me, it just started from just having just a turntable and a component set in your home. Growing up in the 70s, you had the big component set. That was a record player, a TV, inclusive. Played 45s and all that kind of stuff. That's kind of where the birth comes from, just from trying to figure out how to manipulate that.
Okay.
And then I probably grew into just like a typical record player, tape deck, radio system, smaller. But that was my humble beginnings, making pause mixes on that. That was really my first attempt at being a DJ, but I really wasn't thinking that I was being a DJ. I was just like doing it because I like to do it. I was into hip hop. So I would just loop things and try to...
I remember having a set like that when I was a kid, too. I had the old 70s set from my parents, and it had the turntable on the top, and then it had the tape deck, and you could record directly from it. But the biggest thing that I used to do was I'd sit by the radio.
That, too.
And when my song came on, click,
2 fingers.
Exactly.
2 fingers a button.
Yep.
Nah,
You know
we
what
did
the best
same
part of
thing.
that was when you had a cassette because you were out of blank cassettes and
Oh,
you
yeah.
had a trashy cassette that you wanted to record over and you stuffed
Exactly.
those little pieces of paper up in that
Exactly.
thing.
Uh-huh.
Same.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you were able to take that and turn that into like what exactly? Were you able to actually start mixing things on something like that and then decided if I got some better equipment, maybe I could turn this into something?
At those humble beginnings, I just was just looping stuff up. I wasn't really trying to make things mix at that point because, like I said, this was pre-DJing. I was into b-boy, breakdancing, and graffiti at that time.
Okay, yep.
So I was intrigued by looking at breaking and Beat Street and all that kind of stuff and Wild Style. And then that kind of sparked the whole hip-hop thing. And I just wanted to do everything within it. And I pursued pretty much every element.
So when you were listening to that and when you were recording and mixing it, who were your favorites?
Oh, man. My first inspiration to even want to be a DJ and kind of transition and go through different records and such would be Grandmaster Flash. Hearing the adventures of Grandmaster Flash on the Wheels of Steel was like mind-boggling and changed the game. Like it changed the game for me as far as hearing somebody transition through records and breaks and such that way. Because before that, I really wasn't intrigued. I used to like listening to records and just hearing people playing instruments. But then when that came, that took it to another level.
It changes your perception of what's possible.
Exactly.
So when did you get your first set of turntables where you were really able to DJ or perform?
Okay. My first set of turntables of my own, I actually made a trade.
Okay.
I made a trade because I was getting out of my gamer stage. So I made a trade Nintendo with, I think, about 5 to 8 cartridges for a set of turntables in the mix.
All right, so are we talking about original Nintendo? Are we talking about 64? What
Original
are you talking
Nintendo.
about? Okay.
Now,
So
what
what's
you traded for, Gemini or Technique?
No, it was not a Technique. No, my first turntables weren't Technique. No.
Okay.
Gemini, it wasn't even Gemini. Like, it was
Alright.
before that.
More importantly, what games did you trade? Because what year was this? Because that was a big deal.
Yeah, it might have been 87, 88.
So
80-ish.
it had just come out a couple years prior.
Exactly.
So do you remember the games that you traded?
I don't remember exactly because I had quite a few games, and I went through my stage of once I got bored, I would finish the game so quick, and I would master them so fast.
Cheat codes and
that
whatnot.
that I would just rent my games out to people in the hood for 50 cents, whatever. So it was
Why
like,
didn't I think of that?
I don't
mean,
know. He was like the original.
the hustle.
I sold blow pops in middle school. That's as far as I got with that.
That's
that
cool
it?
too, though.
Okay.
Yeah, them little blue raspberry blow pops.
Yeah, that worked. But yeah, I rented my game, but I don't even remember exactly which games it
it's all
was.
good.
But that was my introduction to getting my own set.
So when you traded it, did you get any vinyl in return with the turntables?
No, I didn't get any vinyl. I had vinyl already
Because you had that other
vinyl
set.
was already in my house.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've had vinyl, and then when I really officially started DJing, the vinyl just got passed to me. So it was like I've had vinyl since the early 70s.
So what's your
it's-
favorite vinyl ever owned?
Ooh.
Oh God.
Oh.
It could be
I had to
because
give that some
of
thought, 'cause
that's
I was
what
right
it
away.
it could be sentimental, or
Yeah.
it could be just because it's one of your favorite albums, or just something that's just simply just good on vinyl.
It's a couple of significant albums based on things that were going on in life and kind of monumental times. I would have to say Michael Jackson, Off the Wall.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Gotta say that was one. My first official hip hop record that was purchased for me might have been the Breaking soundtrack.
R.I.P. Shabba-Doo.
Mine was
Boy,
Pac
I'll
Jam.
sit here and tell you what.
Packed
Never
classic.
bought myself.
That was one of my favorite movie. I don't think you'd call it a series because there's just 2 of them. But Breaking 1 and Breaking 2
Oh, no, classic.
were some of my
Classic.
favorite stuff. And just to add to the conversation, my favorite vinyl that I've ever had of all time is What's Going On by Marvin Gaye, because that
Ooh.
album belongs on vinyl.
Oh yeah, no, that's incredible.
It's got them little pops and
Yeah, I got quite a few, but I'm just saying certain ones that, because like I said, that's an ongoing conversation. I can keep
Oh,
going,
yeah,
keep
no
doing
doubt.
that forever. But another distinctive one I remember in my household that I first kind of gravitated towards would be Earth, Wind, and Fire, Gratitude.
yes, please.
Yeah.
Big fan. We've talked about this. Big fan.
So you got your set of turntables. You got your vinyl. You're here in Durham. How does one at that time go from mixing things in your home and listening to music to actually performing and working with artists?
Whoa, yeah, that's a long process. But I guess that depends on your determination.
Sure.
I had determination. I had fellow friends of mine. We all were dabbling in DJing at the time when I first really got into DJing, because when I bought my record, when I got the breaking and all that kind of stuff, I was flirting, but I wasn't officially saying I was a DJ. This is 84, 85, like Fat Boy. I was mixing, I was looping records up, but I wasn't saying I was a DJ until maybe, like I said, about 87, 88, once I had a crew of people that we had a couple friends that was all into the DJ portion, and everybody had their little equipment, and we brought some things together at the Boys Club, at John Avery Boys Club.
Okay.
And then we created like a radio station in the basement of the Boys Club. Everybody brought some equipment in, and that was the birth of really me DJing, but it was so many people trying to get into it, I couldn't really get my time that I needed. So that's when I made the trade, and then I went in the lab. You know what I'm saying? So it was like the people that was around at that point, we was out when it was all of us, they noticed that my learning curve was so quick. We were doing this one week, and then the next week I was scratching and cutting, and they were like, oh, hey, what did we miss? Like, what happened?
Yeah.
I was blending records. I morphed in a week's time because I was already studying prior to DJing, but then once I started DJing, I just, zeroed in even more. Yeah. I listened to Jazzy Jeff and Jam Master Jay, people who were prevalent in their group for DJing. Cash Money. Yeah. These are cats that I DJ Premier a little bit later, but that was kind of my inspirations to all of the elements of the DJing portion that I possess, because I took portions of each and every Kid Capri to Ron G. It's a lot of inspirations. DJ Nabs, a lot of inspirations that I had growing up that I took elements from and morphed them and made them into what I became to be.
Yeah, back then Nabs was like the one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He was like the one.
Mm-hmm.
I got one question for you. What was your favorite record to scratch?
Ooh, favorite record to scratch.
Because early on, how it is
of
early
course.
on, you're going to have that favorite one.
No, you're right.
The one
you're
that
right.
you're always cutting.
Excuse me. I probably would say Rock the Bells.
Ooh. Mine was Rebel Without a Cause.
So you're growing as a musician. At a certain point, though, people start hiring you.
Exactly.
So who was the first to give you a shot to work with you? Or were you getting gigs as doing parties or doing clubs before starting to work with artists?
Okay, yes. I started DJing. I started making mixtapes first and foremost.
Okay.
And then people started hearing buzzing about the mixtapes, which led to doing house parties and the stuff, things of that nature. And then it was a particular, I had a couple friends that we was doing consistent parties. My man DJ Fats, DJ Lil B. We was doing a lot of house parties around the area. We started getting popular doing that. And then I was approached by a guy named Dexter Scott that I grew up with that I hadn't seen in years. He just saw me at a DJing at a block party outside, and he was like, hey, I know you. The last time he saw me, I was probably 10 years old, 9 years old. So I'm maybe 15, 16 now. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
He's, okay, so you doing this? And I was like, yeah. He said, you doing this now? Because he kind of heard what he was like, okay, yeah, you sounding pretty straight. Okay, then he was like, what you think about getting with me and doing some parties? I was like, well, just let me know. It was nothing set in stone, so I was like, just let me know whenever. So he's okay. So then probably maybe about a year later, he just came to me like, I'm ready. Let's do it. I got some equipment. Let's get it. And that was the birth of Earthquake Productions, 1992.
So you probably forgot about it or didn't take it seriously because it's been a year, right?
Yeah.
But you just continue to do
we still was
parties
doing my house parties, still was doing my mixtapes and stuff like that. So I still stayed consistently doing something. I wasn't making a lot of money or nothing doing it, but I stayed getting my name known and creating the buzz.
So was it the friends that got out the mixtape for you, or how did you put that into distribution, so to speak?
We started our own distribution of that back in the day. It was just, my first introduction to mixtapes, it wasn't a distribution type of situation. It was I was just doing personal mixtapes for people.
So you were just buying cases. It was
and I had people say, yeah, make me a mixtape, and I would make a personal mixtape for them. I wasn't into making copies at the time yet. We wasn't, because
I wonder if any of those are still floating around out there.
I'm quite sure they are.
I would love to hear early Skaz. That's what I like.
Sure they're floating.
The quality of the tape has got to be deteriorated by now. I mean, you're talking about 30-year-old cassette tapes.
It depends on how. It depends on how they're kept too.
Yeah,
true. Right now.
Yeah, if they're kept in good condition and kept in the right environment, they can still be. They still could sound quality.
Yeah.
So
I'd love to know.
What did the music scene in this area look like, or at least the hip hop scene look like at that time?
At that time, it seemed like everybody that actually was into the music scene were kind of affiliated some kind of way, or they had 6 degrees of separation. So it was like it was a tight-knit niche type family thing. The people that were doing music seriously, they knew everybody else who was doing music seriously. Like, it wasn't like somebody just doing it themselves and nobody knows about them. If you were making some noise, then everybody knew, and we all collaborated.
Everybody knew locally?
I mean locally.
Or were there people from outside looking at Durham, like kind of scouting the talent?
I don't think they were yet, because we still was untapped. Untapped.
Because I know 92, hip-hop's definitely already become embedded in the culture, and you've got Atlanta taking off at that point in time, and then you know, obviously New York and LA have been doing their thing forever. When does it come to North Carolina, though?
Officially come to North Carolina, where artists, because we had artists that got situations and stuff, but seems like all the artists at that point in time that got situations usually left. You know what I'm saying? You had I think Nabs he was DJing for a girl named Frosty Freeze, which did a record responding to LL Cool J. They had a situation with the single. Then we had Montague, which at the time, D-Ice Freeze. Yeah, D-Ice Freeze, he ended up getting a situation with Grand Pooba and them, and he moved away to New York. You know what I'm saying? Everybody, when they get it, then DJ Naz moved away to Atlanta, then he got the situation with Chris Cross. Like, it's like people who had stuff bubbling, they moved away, and that's when it took off for them.
They went to a scene that was already happening.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I didn't know about literally any of those things that you just said. So, because the only diss track that I've ever heard on LL was Cannabis. Which is still probably my favorite, but I love LL. Like, so
me too.
But I love LL, but that diss track by Cannabis was one of the best of all time.
Nah, he done had a couple of diss tracks coming at him. He had a couple of diss tracks coming at him because that was kind of how he created his career too.
But look at him now.
Yeah, he's the GOAT.
Yeah.
But he had a couple of people come at him. I think Steady B came at him and talking about the radio when he came with the first single. He was a sucker, so
Success
I took
breeds
your
hate,
radio.
Man.
But really, I feel like I don't necessarily think that it was always hate. I think that it was people just trying to create something from something.
Yeah,
because it started from the Roxanne era. You know what I'm saying? Once they did, that's how they built the career off of distance.
That's still going on.
Yeah,
now.
It became a thing.
When people try to come at Eminem, they probably need to stop.
Who the hell knew who Machine Gun Kelly was? Like, generally, but
look,
now he's a household name because he went after him. I don't care how bad he got destroyed. He still made a name for himself.
He did, and then he made it into something else because he even he already redeveloped.
They said no PR is bad PR, right? Or bad PR is better than no PR.
There's no such thing as bad publicity.
Right.
No bad
publicity.
That fool is dating Megan Fox now.
Good for him.
I'll take a hit from him for that.
He did take an L though.
You know what? He didn't take as bad of an L as some other folks.
I mean, it's
right.
true. It's true.
So,
it's true.
His L ended up being a lesson. And he stepped it up from that.
Exactly. Other people started up here. They tried to go at them, and they went down.
It's because they didn't try something else after.
Exactly. He found a way to reinvent himself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I would. It's like wanting to get in a ring with Mike Tyson and trying to go at Eminem is the same thing to me.
What's that they say? Everybody has a plan
until they get hit in the mouth.
Yeah.
It's Mike Tyson.
I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah. Exactly. All right, you've got people who are bubbling up. They're leaving Durham. So what was your progression?
All right, my progression, like I said, it started from the Earthquake Productions thing. And we were doing like a weekly event for the high schools. And then we moved up into the colleges. We started doing like all the college functions. We took a formula somewhat. It was like once we came with that, we just kept building upon it. So my popularity started growing based on us doing these events and all the people from the town coming to these parties every weekly, and then it started picking up. So then maybe about 2 years, maybe a year and a half, 2 years later, then the bigger clubs in Raleigh or wherever such would hire me because now I got a following. I got a name, I got a following. People was following me from wherever. I would get booked in Greensboro. I get booked in Raleigh. I would get booked in Burlington.
You could fill the venue.
Yeah, so
they wanted money. They're not stupid.
Yeah, so then that's when it started. But then that's how I started getting noticed by people that were in the game or in the business. That kind of helped grow everything too, because when all the artists would come to the area, I would be the host DJ, and then people would be looking at me like, oh, this guy's all right. Like, he's kind of dope.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So that kind of helps.
It's all about, not about who knows you. Right.
That's all about who knows you. Yeah, that's totally.
So who came through that you were doing guest DJing for? Or some of the most memorable ones? Because I'm sure it's hundreds of people.
Oh, man. Wu-Tang to Biggie and Junior Mafia.
Love me some Wu-Tang.
Redman.
You're in the like the top 10 on everybody's list.
Yeah,
so
like
those types of names.
It was like any big name artist that came to the area. Oh, excuse me for that. Any big name that came to the area. I was DJing the event, so I would get exposed to everybody.
So I got a question. You ever do stuff at the Cradle? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you do anything for Wu-Tang at the Cradle?
Not at the Cradle.
Okay, because one of my favorite hip hop shows of all time was Ghostface at the Cradle when Supreme Clientele came out, and I was just wondering. Ooh. Oh, dude, it was.
I was gonna say I want to say Bro Rap, my partner.
Oh yeah,
he might have did that.
Yeah, probably.
And that's my brother. Like, I brought him up in this game. Like, I trained him firsthand. Like,
man, that was a hell of a show, man. Hell of a show.
So you got all these folks coming in. You're the guest DJ. When do you get the call or the notification that people want you to? They don't want to just see you here. They want you to come to them and start working with them.
Okay.
What's that look like?
Okay. All right. The opportunity actually, I passed up on a few opportunities prior to the one that I actually ended up getting. And it was me being foolish at the time because I felt like it needed to be like a guaranteed situation because I was accustomed to working full time, but my hustle was DJing and I would get money DJing, but I wasn't trying to use that. At the time, I wasn't trying to use that to sustain everything because I was trying to keep it like, okay, let's be realistic.
Before everybody knew what a side hustle was.
Yeah, it's like, let's be realistic. I can make a living doing this partially, but I don't know if I can make a living doing this fully yet. You know what I'm saying? So that's where it was. But like I said, I passed a couple of opportunities up. But actually, I had a mutual friend of Big Daddy Kane that that knew both of us, and I was doing parties. It was two situations based on that. Which the same situation almost. It was like a group. He was managing a group, a singing group that I went to high school with, and I knew everybody. We was doing stuff for years. So they mentioned me to him a few times. Then the mutual friend actually ended up introducing us, so to speak. But when his group mentioned me, he started scouting me out.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? He started coming to some clubs and seeing what was going on and keeping his ear to the street, hearing who people are talking about, this and the third. So by the time the mutual friend introduces us, I already know who you are. I already know what you do. Like, what you think about going around? It was instant. It was like, I've been watching you and I've been listening. What you think about going on the road 20 years later?
Yes, please.
Years later.
Yes, please.
I can't imagine. That's just that conversation had to have blown you away. You know who I am? I know who you are. Everybody knows who you are. So you know me?
Is that one of those things where you're happy that you did not take the previous things? You think is this one of those everything happens for a reason type things?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
Because number one, it allowed you to stay around here, I would assume.
Yes, I prided myself on wanting to still be based here. Instead of doing it like everybody else and leaving, I wanted to still be based and still use what I've learned and everything to try to bring people this area up.
Sure.
So that's what I've been trying to do for the past over 20 years, really, with working with artists, even prior to getting on the road. It was like, as a producer, that's what I was trying to do.
So you going on the road with Big Daddy Kane.
Mm-hmm.
What year is this?
2000 might have been the first, or it was like late 99 into 2000.
All right.
So you're touring the country, the world, just everywhere playing shows. I'm sure you've got some crazy stories. Keep in mind, we're on the air.
Yeah.
but we're not regulated.
Yeah, we're not regulated.
Kind of
you can talk about whatever you want, but just give us a little taste of what it's like to travel the world working with somebody who pretty much everybody knows on a first name basis. We Kane. All right. Exactly.
It's beautiful, man, and it's amazing to see around the world, and it allowed me to really put things in perspective as far as traveling the world and seeing how the fan base works. Sadly to say, I feel like us as Americans as a whole take a lot of things for granted within it. You know what I'm saying?
For sure.
And that's what I've known. That's what I've seen based on traveling around the world. What I mean by that is, let's even say locally.
Okay.
Let's say locally. Okay, locally, somebody that may be about 12 to 15, maybe, not even 12 to 15, 12 to 20 at this point, 12 to 20. You ask them who Big Daddy Kane is, they probably don't have a clue.
No idea.
Unless they have good parents.
But that's my point. That's my point.
Yeah.
They don't have a clue. But worldwide, we have 12 to 20 might be at the show and they know the words. Because they respect it that much more and they study it that much more. That's why I said our people take it for granted. It's like our youth only, like, it's got to be within this period of time. It's got to be within 5 to 10 years for them to know what's going on with it.
Sure.
If it's 5 or 10 years old, they looking like, what is that? I don't know that.
Sure. I guess a metaphor is if you're swimming, you don't appreciate the water.
Yeah.
But if you live in the desert, a little bit of water, and you're gonna cherish it.
You're
So getting that opportunity to experience hip hop culture in another country, where this country it's completely permeated, born and raised with it. I mean,
and it's a dime a dozen. It's a dime a dozen here. Like everybody's an artist, everybody's a DJ, everybody's a. You know what I'm saying? That's how it's become.
I was planning on asking you about that, right? Because anybody can get a cheap set of turntables, or you can go and download a mixing program for your computer, and you can upload whatever it is that you have to SoundCloud or YouTube. And you got 12-year-old hip hop artists and MCs that are, I wouldn't even call them MCs. They're rapping from their phones on something they wrote, and it sounds okay, but really it's nothing. But anybody can do it now.
How talent is found nowadays.
It is how
I guess it's how it's found nowadays.
Well, you know the lead singer for Journey, the guy that replaced.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, he was found on YouTube.
But
he's right. That's the A&R.
But the grind is completely different. There were so many gatekeepers in the past, and it almost seemed to function as a quality control because there's so much garbage now.
And you're right.
Can you elaborate a little bit on that from your perspective as somebody who's been in the game forever that is a professional? There's a difference between somebody who does something at home and somebody who is a professional.
I agree.
So how do you look at that?
I agree. Yeah, like you said, I feel like technology, gift and a curse. Gift and a curse. How I look at it is it should be technology should be the prize for paying a certain amount of dues or doing things a certain way and earning those stripes. Like in the Army, like you got to go through basic training, you got to go through, then you move to a private, and you move to a corporal, you move to a sergeant.
Sure.
And I feel like it should be that way. You should work through the ranks versus once the technology is being so accessible that, like I said, somebody can just start rapping today and they can have a song out tonight if they're savvy enough to know the steps.
I watched a YouTube video. 2 kids, they made an entire album in 24 hours. Kids, that's crazy. And it seems to me that the availability of technology isn't necessarily the accessibility isn't distributed equally. Right. Hip hop culture came from black communities, and people would be rapping on street corners, and if they were good enough and they built up their repertoire and a following, they would be able to get into potentially working with somebody like yourself and maybe get recognized, get signed. Now, the way Clint was talking about, they find talent via the internet, but kids that still grow up in poor communities, they don't have access to that technology. So all these new rappers that are coming out, they're coming from these like middle-class suburban lifestyles because they can afford the technology, but they don't come with the
Struggle.
story.
They don't come with the struggle.
It's a struggle. That's the whole part I think about hip hop that we've lost recently is the soul of that struggle of having to face adversity, because these kids nowadays, they're not facing any adversity. Mom and dad pay for their equipment, pay for their internet access. They don't have to worry about
take it for granted.
They're going to
ever
take
the
internet for granted because
they're never hungry.
Never not that type of hungry. No.
Well, literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
Can I ask a follow up? Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
So hypothetical.
Okay.
The year is still 2021, and you are a 15-year-old Skaz. How do you get your name out there, and how do you operate?
Okay. Yeah, 15-year-old Skaz at 2021.
With all of the technology advancements.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. I feel like the 15-year-old Skaz in 2021, my journey would have been a whole lot faster.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Just because of the accessibility. But me still being focused on the actual talent and the skill is going to make me ahead of the average 15-year-old because that's what I pay attention to, the details. I got the details.
It seems like there would be a lot more competition now.
Right.
Oh, definitely.
It's a lot of white noise out there.
What, literally.
Yeah. Not everybody's like Skaz. Like you were saying, you got shown something one time and you came back the next time and you were doing it plus some. It's like a story that Barry Gordy told about Stevie Wonder, how Stevie Wonder walked into Motown and was listening to all these guys play. You have the Funk Brothers there. You have Marvin Gaye there. You have Smokey Robinson sitting there watching you. And this dude just gets down and starts playing the piano and then starts playing the drums and starts playing the harmonica and starts walking in the studio.
Yeah, they're like, wow, this
right?
guy's
You have a lot of self-proclaimed prodigies nowadays.
Self-proclaimed.
Yeah.
That doesn't
And
count.
so I was just wondering if you would still feel the working through the ranks portion if you were a 15-year-old Skaz.
My way of thinking, I would.
Okay.
That's just my way of thinking. The average 15-year-old.
Suffice it to say, you're old school.
Yeah, and it's really hard to answer that question because if you grew up in the 70s and 80s, and times are very different. And like I was just saying, kids nowadays, they don't even know what it's like to not have internet. We didn't get internet until you're a little bit older than me.
I'm a grown up.
I didn't have internet till my junior year in high school. It was,
but you're still like 10, 15 years out from it being anywhere near what it is.
This was
So
going.
You saying high school?
Yeah, I was. See,
I was well.
I graduated
out of high
in
school.
'98.
Okay.
Right.
I was well out of high school before.
Right.
Before the internet even surfaced.
You have to understand, Clint's the baby in the
No, I get it. And he said he pointed that out.
Yeah.
But even that in perspective is saying a lot.
Well, because I was
even from
15,
your,
16
from your generation,
when the internet came out.
Yeah.
I think where Skaz would have had the leg up on most people now is that he's the type of person who studies history.
Oh,
yes.
We're going to get to that too, I'm sure.
I think a lot of the kids these days don't know their history.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
Amen.
No joke.
So speaking of the history,
let's talk about that because we don't want to keep Skaz forever.
It seems like you're very much a product of the golden era of hip hop, and I hate that it's labeled that because it just seems like the era when things were good consistently.
But I guess that's why they called it the golden era though, at the same time.
Well, right.
So
I don't want it to go away, but
no, you're right.
But looking at where hip hop came from, what it became in the 90s, maybe even the early 2000s, and now you look at I know this is retread ground, and you've probably been asked about this a million times. You got the mumble rap, and you've got the electronica, and you've got the auto tune, and all these things out there. Where do you see coming from a long and tradition history in hip hop? Where do you see hip hop going into the future? Or at least the music, because I know hip hop is more than just the music; it's a whole culture, which I'd love for you to talk about too.
That gets lost.
So talk about the music, where you see that going in the future, and then to step back a little bit and talk about what hip hop means to you as a cultural.
All right, musically, it seems. I feel like musically, it goes into cycles. It does go into cycles, and it does recycle. As far as what they're doing musically, it grows legs and moves on to something that, like, it takes different forms, and which, with it being different forms, it should be a different genre. With that being said, but the beautiful thing about hip hop is the fact that it's grown from this music that people said won't last to the longest lasting genre almost. Like at this point, it's almost the longest lasting genre.
It's almost
for
the core
everything.
of
It's the
American
core,
music.
It's the
period.
core. And it was like hip hop came from this thing that borrowed from every genre to every genre borrows from it.
Even country music
Exactly.
has rap now.
Yeah, everything flipped. It's
Yeah.
like hip hop has borrowed from every genre, but now every genre borrows from hip hop.
Okay, so what's the difference between hip hop and rap?
Hip hop is the cultural part. It's everything. It's all of the things that embody it. It's going to be with the graffiti. It's going to be with the rapping. It's going to be the DJing, the b-boying, beatboxing. Things that came.
Right.
Talk about
things that
something you
came
don't
from the
see a
root.
lot.
Yeah, of the street element of when hip hop was created, and it's dress. It's certain culture. So
Swag, attitude.
so hip hop has grown into so much, but I feel like it's grown into so much, but it's lost some of the core element as far as how people view it. How people view hip hop, thinking it's just music.
Well, it's because it's so watered down now.
Yeah, they
and
thinking it's just the music.
Yeah, because that's
not
what
the
people
music.
think whenever you say hip hop. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, I like that music.
Yeah, it ain't. It's how they say hip hop is how you dress. Hip hop is how it's not just the music. I feel like that's the part of it that's gotten away from a lot of people because of the material gain that it has
Oh,
you know,
sure.
came into. It's come into so much financial gain and so much big business that the culture part of it is getting lost.
So who do you see nowadays? And keeping in mind, obviously, that a lot of artists who started early in the hip hop movement are still around and still making great
Thank
albums.
goodness.
Yeah, absolutely. But who new artists that are out there that you see who, like, if we took you out of this era and dropped you into the late 80s, early 90s, would fit in just
Who would
as
still
well?
fit?
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Jimmy John's got you hurting.
Jersey
Yeah,
Mike's.
got
Mike's, excuse me.
Got big asses.
Not a sponsor, but if you want to be.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like J. Cole.
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
like Kendrick Lamar.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Anderson .Paak. I feel like he would fit perfect.
J. Cole does have that old soul.
Yeah, honestly, I can't front. I think Drake would fit.
Yeah.
Drake would fit.
He just gets on my nerves.
He
would
no he.
definitely fit though.
I think
He
it's
would
just his
fit because-
presence.
Nah.
Yeah, I get that.
See, this is what it is. See, let's be realistic. Drake can actually really rap.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
he's talented.
Yeah,
But it's just he found a lane and he stays in that lane, and now everybody's doing that same lane. You know what I'm saying? Just like the Lil Wayne, like everybody, like once somebody becomes popular and they find a way, then it's like you have a whole lot of chips off of that block, and that's when it gets so saturated and everything starts sounding
I just
the
don't like
same.
his persona. I think that that persona he's created for himself, I'm just not a huge fan.
I get it, because I'm not a huge fan of all his music, but I analyze things for everything. I don't. Just,
Oh, his music's good.
Yeah,
I just
I
don't
don't-
like him as a person.
No, that's what I'm saying. I don't even in that case.
Yeah.
I can be unbiased and I can judge all the
Just the
things
music.
within it, or just not the music. I can
Right.
say, okay, lyrically he can do this. I don't like his music, but lyrically he got talent because of this. See, I could look deeper than just the whole.
I have a friend of mine that mixes his own music and stuff, and he said the same thing about Eminem. He doesn't like his songs, but he can write his ass off,
Nah,
and the dude can just
He can
do
rap.
it better than anybody else.
Yeah,
but
he
he
can.
doesn't like the content of his
But
songs.
see, that's
His flow changes and
Oh,
his
it's insanity.
That's what's incredible about him.
multi-rhyme
Yeah.
lines.
That's
It's-
incredible.
And his
he's
breath
sick.
control,
He's
it's
sick.
But
disgusting.
see, the thing, and I feel like with him being said, I feel like that's what he gets ridiculed for more than anything. People that like him, they like him.
Sure.
People that don't, they just don't. And they may respect him being able to rap, but if they can't mess with the content,
Right.
that's why they don't like. But like I said, I can analyze. I love Eminem, and he's a genius in everything he does.
100.
And I know, like you said, he does it on a level that's higher than a whole lot of people, and that people don't want to give him that type of credit.
But that's where you go back to hip hop as a cultural movement and the whole idea that art is all about relatability. If you can't relate with the message
That's
that the
right.
artist is trying to convey,
That's why you don't.
then you're not going to be a fan regardless of how technically proficient it is.
You're
And
right.
he talks about what he goes through, and so
Right.
it's not very relatable to everybody.
But
so
ev-
Right,
I
but
can
a lot lot of people
that.
do, which is why he's one of the greatest selling artists of all time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because it's plenty of artists that talk about a certain lifestyle that everybody can't necessarily relate to.
Well,
but
right,
they may mess with it, even if they can't personally relate.
I can tell your story.
Your story is your story. That's the whole point.
Yep.
Who's on the top of your playlist right now?
Top of my playlist?
Yeah, who are you? If you're getting in the car, you have song 1A on side 1. What are you playing?
That kind of varies. It depends on
your
what
mood.
I'm in. Yeah, what kind of mood I'm in. Because it ain't always hip hop. I play all kind of genres.
Well, let's say you're going to the studio to cut this EP that you're working on now that we'll talk about in a little while. What are you listening to?
Oh.
You listening to something to get you in the mood for that?
Yep.
Like some Erica or some Jill?
Yeah. See, I'm getting inspired. Sometimes I just may put on either specifics, like I might, if I want to channel a certain type of vibe that I want to put myself in, then I might check specifics. I might pull out a Donnell Jones, or I might pull out, like you said, a Mel LaRue, or like an early Letter C or something like that, if that's what I want to channel.
Creative
Soul
types.
Child, especially if I'm thinking R&B soul, like I may listen to some of that to give me some inspiration, or sometimes I might even tap it back. I might even listen to some Stevie Wonder, or I might listen to some Marvin Gaye or whatever, just to get that type of vibe and just update it to where currently what I want to come across. So it varies. It's not necessarily one way I do it. Or I may even just, a lot of times when I'm creating music, I just might be in the studio myself, and just sometimes in my record collection, I might do a rhythm roulette. I might just
I like it.
pull something out and just
like
put
it.
it on and see what I come up with.
I like it.
So let me go at that question from an opposite perspective. If you could take your magic eraser and
good.
let's stir up some controversy here. If you could take your magic eraser and make something that's going on in the industry right now, whether it be a movement, an artist, a style, whatever it is, and you could make it disappear immediately.
Cash money.
What? Shush! You're not allowed to speak anymore. I'm gonna bring Birdman in here. He gonna take you out.
I don't have nothing against Cash Money, really. I'm gonna keep it real with you, like on some devil's advocate. Cash Money has had the longest run of any record label ever in rap right now. So I can't be mad at them.
So you're keeping Cash Money.
Juvenile turned me off of that.
What's going away?
I mess with Juvenile. I came front. I mess with Juvie. He brought something different to the game that was.
Well, I heard "Back That Ass Up" 1,000 times a day at work on the same.
But
I'm
not basing Juvenile on that song.
No, it's just what.
That song is just the biggest.
It's like every time I hear it,
it's just,
my eyes starts twitching a little bit. You know what I mean?
I get it. It's just his biggest song. But like, I don't just like when I first heard him on High, I was like, that's something special.
See, that was
it was hard to grasp at first what was going on. But once I found out what was going on, I was like, that's clever. It's different and it's clever. See, that's what I'm always intrigued by in the hip hop game. I want somebody to bring something to the table that's not already there.
Like different kind of word plays.
Yeah, just like whatever. That. Something different to the game that's not there. And that's what all the greats did that. They brought something different. Like even when it started, when like you're talking about the first era where you had your Cold Crushes and all that, you had your Grandmaster Caz and everybody else, but Grandmaster Caz stood out because he brought a different thing to the game. Then he passed the torch to the LLs and the Kumo D's and him and Grandmaster Melly Mel, all them was their lane, but what they were doing was next level from what everybody else was doing. So they set the tone for the next in line. Then when the person came and elevated the game some more, then they tend to have notoriety. You had your LL Cool J's and your Rakims and your Kanes and KRS. They took it for the next level. Then you had your Nas's and Biggies and then they took it to the next. In every era of the genre of music, you had your star players that stood out, and then you had the next era come along.
And you could see where the evolution took.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
From era to era.
So back to Dom's original question.
Yeah, I was about to say
because we kind of got. So I apologize. So what are you kicking out?
What's got to go?
What's got to go?
Oh, what's got to go? I really don't care for mumble rap too much. I feel like that could be erased. I can't necessarily say because to me it's a difference between melodic and mumble because it's a couple of artists that are melodic, but you're gonna understand what they're saying. So I can dig that.
Yeah.
But the mumble is because they became all drug addicts, so they're mumbling because they're drug addicts. You know what I'm saying?
They don't know what they're saying anyway. But they got face tattoos, so they're cool.
Yeah, and I think that's why it became that, because it's and I forget what artist originally said this, but the music changed from drug dealer music to drug user music.
So it became music for the customer.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I forget who said it originally, but it was like it used to be like when people was hustling and they was dealing drugs, they was listening to the Eric B and Rakim, listening to the Jay-Z's and the Nas's and the Biggies, and then it became,
Bring it back to the conversation about Drake that we were having earlier. I really saw that start with him talking about mixing the lean and consuming it, and then it got further into the pill and opiate culture. But that was the first time I really noticed it. It was like we weren't just talking about smoking, we were talking about consuming some stuff that'll put you under.
Southern Playalistic was all about smoking.
Yeah,
so it's all about
smoking
the customer.
was different.
Like,
Smoking was always part of it.
Yeah, smoking was always a prevalent element.
Well, see, I don't ever remember hearing that stuff in Dougie Fresh and Slick Rick or Houdini
they wasn't.
But there's even in the culture there was a difference between weed and everything else. I mean, there's that old line: "I don't do drugs, I just smoke weed." The culture's recognized.
Yeah, of course. But see, even to piggyback off of what you just said there, the Dougie Fresh in them era,
it's my fave.
Their era was coke, but they weren't talking about doing it in their records except for...
because everybody in the 80s was doing coke.
Yeah, but except for Grandmaster Mel. And he would say they make songs called White Lines about doing coke. You know what I'm saying? Or...
Master P.
I think he freaked it to where...
That make crack
they
like
was
this?
trying to... No, they was trying to say... don't do coke in the song, but at the same time it was confusing.
But even then, you're looking at when you're talking about how those particular types of substances manifest themselves in the quality of the music. Yeah. You had drugs that were getting people up or making people more creative versus drugs that are intended to make people pass.
You're right.
Anyhow, yeah, I totally get the mumble rap, and I think that's a pretty easy target, right? Because the quality is just not that great with the product that's out there, but it does. A lot of kids relate to it, which is why it's so damn popular.
They relate to it because now
they're doing the same.
That's influencing them or inspiring them to do the same thing.
Well, weed's no longer controversial. Mom and dad smoke.
And plus now
in these damn red states.
Yeah.
And plus now it's legal in quite a few states.
Yeah.
So now it's not even shunned upon. So now it ain't even that serious no more. So that's why it's not a big thing to talk about weed no more.
Transfer to the pills and the heroin and other things like that.
So we only got a little bit of time left. I want to let you talk about some of the things that you got coming up. So what kind of new projects are you working on, Skaz?
Okay, right now, like I said, I'm doing a project with a young singer named Nisha The Voice. We got an EP coming real soon. We probably about maybe halfway done. And then I have a couple of freelance projects or freelance tracks that I'm doing with some local artists that we're about to materialize into some things.
Nice. And when you do drop those, how can people get a hold of that?
They're going to be on most streaming platforms. Well, it should be on all streaming platforms, but it's going to be strategic on how they're actually released to those. But yeah, they're going to be available anywhere and everywhere. Right now, the single You and I, which is like a leak song, that's available on SoundCloud. It's minute. So Nisha The Voice on SoundCloud, you can check that out. We haven't released it to streaming platforms because of clearance issues. We're not sure about all the details on, but we getting a lot of good feedback and was getting a lot of traction for this song.
What about your streaming show? Tell people where they can find that.
Yes, I do two on the weekends. I do a Saturday, Soul Train Saturdays, in which I play the music we grew up on that you looked at on Saturday morning when you looked at TV. I play a lot of the songs that that the stuff that we grew up on.
Would they do the dance lines? I still love. I'll catch that on YouTube. I'll watch those dance lines. Those were fun.
Exactly. So I play that type of music, all the stuff that was around at that time. And then on Sundays I do a cool out two-step skate vibe. At 1 o'clock on Sundays, I do Stepper Skaters Sundays, Stepper Skaters Groove Sundays, and I came up with that idea.
Stuff.
Yeah, and I came up with that idea because I DJ'd at the skating rink on Sunday for about 10 years.
Man,
so,
there was nothing more fun than
that's just the
Saturdays
vibe.
or Sundays going to the skating rink. Man,
So it's like a vibe.
I love that stuff. Kids nowadays don't really know about that.
I still remember the Four Corner song. That
I'm all about that.
Yeah.
So I have a couple of questions, just random questions that I wanted to ask. First is, who is the best lyricist you've ever worked with? Not performer necessarily, just lyricist. Yeah, because I know you said Big Daddy Kane was a good one. Of course, definitely. I did, like, outside of Big Daddy, like, who could just lay it down, no help necessarily needed, just get out on the mic and.
Actually, I've had the pleasure to work with Sauce Money. He's pretty mean with it too. And that's Kane was like his. That's like his. He brought him into the game in a sense. So
nice.
Yes, that was a great. It's plenty of them that's local. You got a couple of local artists that Josie Moe was mean. Rhapsody. I've worked with her early on. I would like to do some
before
work.
she won a Grammy.
I would like to work with her again, but it's right now. But I mean,
that could lead me to another one. Who's your favorite female MC of all time?
Female of all time?
Yeah, because mine's Raw Digga. I think it's pretty easy for me.
I love Raw Digga.
Light was good.
MC might be my favorite.
Yeah.
My top female MCs probably would be MC Light, Lauryn Hill.
Oh, okay. I understand that.
Don't forget about her.
I can't even be upset with that.
But everybody, the sad thing is people like
they just judging her. That's all.
No, I hear people not even considering her MC. Like, they just know her for singing.
Yeah, people need to go back.
Because I remember, because I've heard that on the radio. Somebody I think it was on Ricky Smiley.
That Mona Lisa track they laid down, 20 years ago, 30 years ago now?
They were like they was talking about the female MCs, and somebody said Lauryn Hill, and they was like, you consider her rap?
Oh yeah.
Like, what? What
you're
you
out of your mind.
You need to go back to the. She's
the best MC in the Fugees.
To me, she's a better she's a better hip hop artist than she is singer, and she is a hell.
Like,
just watched Sister Act 2 again.
Yeah, she can rhyme better than plenty of fellas.
Oh.
When
she that Score album, we can't even talk about all those lines in that album because that was
just keep
unbelievable.
going back to this music in the '90s, and every time I listen to something now, I'm clearly biased because I came up in late 80s, early 90s with the music, and obviously everybody thinks their generation is the best, but I can't help but think, if you drop some of these albums from the 90s, if they didn't exist but you dropped them today, they would still be at the top of the charts.
Oh, yeah.
I don't care.
Of
the
course,
quality
of
is that high.
1,000,000%.
And
Yeah.
that's the difference between how they make music now versus how they made music then.
As we were saying, watered down in society just overall.
Yep.
All right, favorite venue you've ever performed?
Oh.
Not a studio,
I got you.
not anything like that.
Oh, favorite venue. Oh, I've performed around the world.
This is why I ask.
1 of 5.
Like, there's like Hollywood Bowls out there. Have you ever performed there?
Who's that?
The Hollywood Bowl. You ever performed at Red Rocks?
Not the
Anything like that?
Hollywood Bowl,
I'd love to.
I'm just trying to think because it's so many. I'm trying to think of something that super just stands at the top of the list. Oh, spot in Amsterdam called.
Okay, you can just stop there. It's fine.
I think it's called Parisidio or something like that.
Okay.
The energy is madness.
Yeah,
it's madness.
Well, it's like you were saying that people over there, hip hop is different for them than it is here, rightfully. And then the last question that I wanted to ask: who's the most famous person in your phone? Who's your most famous contact in your phone?
Oh, who is my most famous contact in my phone? Let me think.
We need to cut to the Jeopardy music right now.
Because honestly, and that's a good thing. That's one good thing about my career as being this DJ and being exposed to different things and different people and different places. I've accumulated a lot of friends of people that I was inspired by and influenced by, and I call them good friends now. So it's kind of hard, like at this point, like thinking like, who's the most famous? Wow, because I do have quite a few famous people. But
you got any presidents in your phone? that would immediately be
no presidents. Don't stunt like that. No presidents.
No presidents.
No
Okay.
No presidents.
Okay.
We could
just
keep
give
it to
us
hip
one.
hop.
Just give us one that's out there that we'd be like, damn. All
Okay.
right.
Got a good friend, DJ Scratch.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
That's my
Oh
phone.
yeah. Everybody should know
my
DJ
partner.
Scratch.
Yeah, that's my.
I wish he was in my phone.
I got quite a few, but it ain't because MC Light. That's one of my sisters in music. I've worked with her DJ for plenty of times.
Nice.
pretty famous too.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so last question, then we'll let you get out of here. You've had a lot of experiences across the world, time in the industry, time before that, just experienced a lot of stuff. If you could change anything in the world, and I'm not just talking music. You can go to music, you can go to culture, you can go anywhere. If you could snap your fingers and make that change,
Like
what would you
Thanos.
change? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Say the Thanos, huh?
Yeah, exactly. You got the Infinity Stones.
And you don't have to say anything like world hunger or peace or anything. That's not what we're looking for. That's the cliche.
Yeah, from your perspective.
From your
Keeping
perspective.
it all the way G, and I'm quite sure a whole lot of people who agree with me.
Yes.
The last year,
Oh, gosh.
I would snap and make that disappear.
I get that.
The whole year,
So
everything.
I get it.
Can you go back and do the last 4 years, please?
That might even be good.
Can we go back to the Obama administration?
Well, we just
That was
need
a
to
good
take
point.
it to
Exactly.
November of 2019 before there were any COVID cases in the United States
There you go.
and take it from there.
Yeah. I mean,
When we can actually get together with people and
just
whatnot.
yeah. I mean, because I feel like so many things changed in the world in that period of time.
Oh,
just
yeah,
from
for
that
sure.
point to now,
Yeah.
Sure.
to where I think that's the most detrimental I think the biggest experience we've had in our lifetimes, something that affected us that much.
Well, 9/11 and
I mean, there's
More
more
than
than
that.
9/11 to
yeah,
me.
Yeah, you
because
about
it's a
9/11
it's a cumulative.
Yeah, it's
You
more
talk
than
about 9/11 was a one-day event.
Yeah,
Yes.
it
It
was
lost a
on-
little over 3,000 people.
Yeah.
Correct.
It's different to
Everybody's
me.
been locked
Yep.
down for a year.
Oh,
Our
I
kids
get
are in
it.
the house. You
Yep.
can't go to work. 400,000 people just in
People
this
losing
country
jobs,
alone.
man. This 9/11 can't touch this.
No.
'Cause we're
I
talking
understand
about
that.
This is a society-changing event completely. You
Like the
have
Spanish flu.
people aren't even going to know how to connect with each other anymore after this.
It's going to be very
yeah.
interesting, and I really feel sorry for the kids,
Oh
for the
man.
for the teenagers, not necessarily little
Oh, I
kids,
got
but like my daughter, for instance.
Yeah,
she didn't get to go to her senior prom.
Nah, I
she
got
didn't
it,
get to go to
'cause
graduation.
I got one that's that
right?
age, too.
So you know what I'm talking about. So
Senior this year. She,
yeah,
you know,
and it's just weird and
Yeah.
different, and her first year in college is virtual, and it's very
it's
strange.
funky.
You know
It's
what I mean?
funky.
Yeah.
It's pretty rad, man.
yeah. But see, but at the same time, my 10-year-old, man, the transition, oh man, it's terrible because
Are we just talking educationally, or are we talking
Yeah.
because I
nah,
assume he has a group of
educationally
friends
and
that he can play
soci-
with
and socially.
Okay.
Nah, socially because
You can't
It's
really
just-
get together.
If you have your little pod of
you
people
can,
like in a neighborhood or
but
whatever.
It's still, but
It's-
see, that's the thing about it. My kids, they grew up different because they're different in the sense of we've been living in the same neighborhood almost 8 years. They don't ever go outside to go play with anybody in the neighborhood or even kick it with anybody in the neighborhood.
Their
They
friends
know
are all
some people-
online with them.
Yeah,
They
they're
know
playing
some
video
people.
games.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they know some people, but they. So my
Yep.
son, he never goes outside and
Ain't
kicks
going
it
riding
with
bikes
Going
and
anybody.
shit.
Like,
going outside is a punishment now.
yeah,
It used to be
Yeah,
when
man.
we were kids. You
couldn't get
go-
my ass inside. bro.
if you couldn't go outside, you was
You're ruining my life, Mom.
yeah.
I mean, until I got my Nintendo and shit.
Now
what-
if you,
see-
you send a kid outside, you're torturing.
Right? Yeah.
You're a bad
So,
parent.
like, when I take my son, when I say you can't play that Xbox, boy, it's serious.
You
Take
take your
that-
son and be like, we're not going to play Xbox today. We're going roller skating.
You don't get.
No, he'll do that.
I love his roller skating.
Now
Let's
he'll
go.
do that. See, the thing about my kids, like I said, is we'll do things with my kids,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't do things with age. Like
Right,
they,
sure.
like we do stuff to entertain our kids because that's just me and my wife. We just do that. But if it comes time to them having to do it themselves, like
Mm-hmm.
they'll rather sit in the house and not do nothing and talk to somebody on the text
Yep.
or whatever. It's just a different.
It's just different.
This didn't have nothing to do with the pandemic. It's been
No,
like
that's just
that
the
for
way
some
it is.
years. Like they've been
Yeah.
like that for years. It ain't like
Yeah.
the pandemic made them do that.
But-
and our
but
parents were
it's-
we didn't have TV when I was growing up. Right?
But
Yeah.
but the pandemic is now exacerbating
Yes.
that
Yeah,
aspect
it is.
of
Exactly.
society because there is no going to school and interacting with your
Exactly.
peers. It's only
Yep.
the digital
Yeah.
communication.
Yeah.
That's why I said the 10-year-old. That part is. I'm saying, and this is what because I had a conference with his teacher this past week, and I noticed about him that whole digital online thing is not a good thing for him because
My kid's the same way.
because they're gonna use that time to be sneaking and doing other stuff when they supposed to be paying attention. That's just
Yeah,
gonna
you get-
happen.
you get a
and
class-
ain't nobody watching over because
Yeah.
like we can't sit and watch
Yeah,
him the
no, I
whole.
get
We
that.
can't go to school with him.
You're
and
trying to
sit and
work,
wa-
and they got a
No.
classroom full of kids, and none of them turn their cameras on, and then they're watching YouTube videos while the teacher's trying to do whatever.
Or
And
even,
yeah.
but the 10-year-old, they got the camera on, but they still watching YouTube videos. Why they looking at YouTube videos and not paying attention? And they like, he's not paying attention.
In the kids' defense, Dre and I have the same problem. So whenever we need to get something done for the show or want to talk about the show, we don't do it over the phone. We don't do it at his house or my house or a friend's house. We meet here because we're more focused here.
Yeah.
Exactly. And because if we didn't do
that
it here,
sense.
it wouldn't get done. It wouldn't get done. We'd be playing video games
just
or some
like
shit.
Kids.
I understand part of that, but I'm just saying, like, with him, I'm just saying it's already he's not as social, and then the fact that this is like the green light for them to do everything else, but what they're supposed to be doing. That's all I'm saying. It's like we know their attention span is already short, but I mean, y'all giving them the tools, and you opening the door for this mess.
Yeah. You know, but it's like, what do you do though?
But it ain't no way. It ain't no way around it.
It really is. There's nothing you can do.
So you said you didn't have any more questions?
Nah, I was gonna end on that.
Okay, went about it. Long answer.
Well, at least we got it accomplished.
Yeah, man. And Skaz, I wanted to thank you for taking your time and your effort. Oh, and I don't know why I didn't mention this. Skaz will be doing our intro music, and so that'll be coming soon. So I'm going to make sure that we give him that credit. And again, thank you for your time, Skaz.
Thank you.
I appreciate you. It's good to know you, and hopefully we can continue to work.
Indeed, we are. And I appreciate all of y'all for extending your hands for this opportunity.
Yeah, thanks for coming into the studio. I just want to remind everybody that if you enjoyed this show
or didn't enjoy it,
if you didn't enjoy it, we're going to have a different conversation, but if you enjoyed this show, please go and give us a review, subscribe, like the YouTube video, wherever you're consuming this. Make sure that you have the opportunity to see upcoming or listen to upcoming podcasts
on Twitter at the Liquid Soapbox.
We also got
Instagram at the Liquid Soapbox,
and we've also got the Liquid Soapbox podcast on Facebook as well.
Yes, we do. So visit anywhere, comment. We may read some listener comments on the air.
That may happen.
Yeah, I'd love to have a listener comment show. That would be fantastic. So yeah, rate, review, and subscribe.
And for Clint, for Dre, and especially for Skaz, appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
We'll see y'all next week.
Good time.
Bye.